Chosen One. Breathe for a moment, because what you're stepping into right now is not ordinary time. This is Kairos. This is the hour heaven wrote into your prophetic scroll long before you took your first breath. You did not click this video by curiosity or coincidence. You were summoned. The seal on your destiny is loosening, the hidden pages of your assignment beginning to unfold, and your spirit knows it. You can feel that familiar stirring, that holy pressure, that quiet trembling that says something ancient is waking up inside you. There is a reason your eyes are here in this exact moment. Heaven moves with precision, never late, never early. As it is written in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, the vision waits for its appointed time. Chosen. One that appointed time is now. You are standing at the edge of a divine unlocking that could unfold tonight or in the coming hours. A long-written prophecy is rising to meet you, and heaven is aligning your steps with the rhythm of its own clock. Anointed One, open your spirit. This is an invocation, a summons, a calling back to the reason you were sent to this earth. As we unveil the 8 types of chosen ones and their divine callings, prepare yourself. Something in you is about to awaken. Chosen One. As we step into this prophetic unveiling, I need you to hear this, not with your natural ears, but with the deeper senses of your spirit. Because what we are about to explore is not information, it is activation. It is the unsealing of a scroll that has waited for your awareness, waited for the appointed hour, waited for the moment when heaven would whisper, "Now." And if these words are reaching you today, that moment is here. There are 8 types of chosen ones in this world, but before we speak of them, you must understand something far more personal. Your presence in this moment is not random. It is evidence that heaven is aligning your inner world with a divine blueprint written for you before your first breath. I say this gently but firmly. The fact that you are here means your scroll is being opened. Something in the realm of spirit has shifted, and now your divine identity is rising to the surface. Let us begin with the first type, the healer. And chosen one, if, as I speak, something inside you stirs, warms, or awakens, then pay attention. Heaven may be confirming who you truly are. The healer carries a frequency that cannot be imitated. You do not heal with your hands alone, but with your presence, your voice, your calm, your compassion, your ability to sit in the fire without flinching. From a young age, you may have noticed that people gravitated toward you. Not the loud ones, not the confident ones, the wounded ones, the overlooked, the broken-hearted. They saw something in you that you weren't taught to see in yourself. A softness that wasn't weakness, but divine strength in disguise. Healers are often forged through pain, not to punish them, but to prepare them, because only those who have walked through midnight can guide others into dawn. I've lived this myself. There were seasons in my life when I wondered why I had to carry so much emotional weight, why I felt the world more deeply than others seemed to. I didn't realize then that heaven was shaping me into someone who could sit with another soul in their darkest moment and still see light. This is the same path many healers walk. Not easy, but sacred. Chosen One. Your spiritual DNA carries the ability to turn suffering into serenity. Think about that for a moment. Not everyone can do this. Some people break under emotional pressure, but you absorb it, transform it, and send back peace. That is not normal. That is divine. If you are a healer, you notice pain before it's spoken. You sense the heaviness in a room the moment you walk in. You hear what people meant, even when their mouths never said it. You don't rush to fix, you hold. You don't lecture, you understand. And people feel safe with you, not because you have the right words, but because you carry a presence that reminds them of home of God, of a love that does not judge or demand. I've seen this gift manifest in small, everyday ways, sometimes in the quiet moments when someone sits beside you and says, "I don't know why, but I feel calm with you." Or when a stranger shares their life story without understanding why they trust you. It happens because your spirit speaks even when your lips don't. Your energy comforts even when your hands do nothing. Heaven marked you for this. This is why your life has not been gentle. Healers are stretched, broken open and remade so they can see with heaven's eyes. Your compassion was not formed in comfort. It was born in fire. And if you've asked why me, the answer is simple. Because your calling requires a heart that feels, a spirit that endures, and a soul that shines even with tears in its eyes. Your divine purpose is to bring peace into places where chaos has lived too long, to comfort those who feel forgotten, to breathe hope into those who are losing themselves. You are the balm heaven uses to mend emotional wounds, and the world desperately needs you. Chosen one, if while hearing this, your chest feels warm, your eyes feel heavy, or something deep inside says yes, then this may be your confirmation. The healer is rising in you, and heaven is preparing to use you in ways you once thought impossible. Chosen one. As we continue this unveiling, I want you to stay open in your spirit. What you are stepping into is not a lesson, it is a remembering. This is what happens when heaven begins to highlight the deeper layers of your identity. The scroll unrolls a little further, the codes glow a little brighter. The truth becomes harder to ignore. Now we step into the second type, the fighter, and if the healer carries the frequency of compassion, then the fighter carries the frequency of divine fire. Anointed one. If you have ever wondered why your life has felt like an ongoing battlefield, why the storms seem stronger around you than around others, why challenges came in waves that would have drowned the average person, this is the moment your spirit needs to hear the truth. You were not being attacked because you were weak. You were being trained because you are chosen. The fighter is not forged in a peaceful life. The fighter is shaped on the front lines of existence. You carry a backbone heaven carved with intention. You have endured what should have destroyed you, and somehow you rose stronger, wiser, more awakened. That is not coincidence. That is calling. Chosen one. You may not realize this yet, but your resilience is a spiritual sign. Every time you refused to break, every time you stood back up, every time you kept moving, when everything in you wanted to collapse, you were revealing the hidden mantle heaven placed on your shoulders. There were seasons when you looked around and wondered why your path was harder than others. You watched people glide through life while you fought unseen battles in silence. You questioned why betrayal, loss, injustice, and hardship seemed to find you again and again. I understand this. I've walked through my own storms that felt unfair and unreasonable. But years later, I understood the truth. Heaven was teaching me the language of war because my destiny required the strength of a warrior. Fighters carry a spiritual authority that others sense even before you speak. People look to you instinctively when chaos erupts, not because you try to lead, but because the spirit of leadership is woven into your being. You don't shrink in crisis, you rise. You don't allow injustice to pass quietly. Something inside you ignites. You feel a holy discontent when darkness tries to overtake someone you love, or even a stranger. You were created to confront what others run from, and here is something most fighters don't realize. Until much later, your silence is often louder than other people's shouting. When you stand still, the atmosphere shifts. When you look someone in the eye, truth is felt. When you speak, deception trembles. Even your presence exposes what is hidden. This is why some people are intimidated by you without reason. They sense the spiritual authority you carry. Chosen one. This is also why you have faced spiritual warfare from a young age. Hell recognized your assignment before you did. The enemy saw your strength rising long before you believed it existed. That's why he tried to break you early. That's why you were attacked in the areas of your identity, confidence, and purpose. If he could weaken the warrior before the battle, he thought he could stop the mission, but he failed. You're still here, not as the weakened version he hoped for, but as the forged, awakened, spiritually armed version heaven intended. There's a moment every fighter eventually reaches, a moment that feels like a veil being lifted. You begin to realize that every battle was training, every wound was wisdom, every setback was sharpening. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start recognizing yourself as a vessel of divine strength. I want you to notice something personal for a moment. Think back to the darkest seasons of your life. Remember the nights you thought you wouldn't make it through. Remember the days when everything felt heavy. You didn't rise because someone rescued you. You rose because something divine inside you refused to die. That was your warrior spirit revealing itself. Your divine purpose is to defend, protect, expose darkness, and bring courage to those who have lost theirs. You are not just fighting for yourself. You are fighting for the people connected to your destiny. Heaven trusts you with battles others cannot carry. Chosen one. If something inside you feels like it has been reignited, if you feel heat in your chest, pressure in your spirit, or a sudden clarity, it may be heaven confirming this truth. The fighter in you is awakening. Chosen one. As we move deeper into this revelation, the scroll opens to a realm of identity that feels ancient, familiar, and strangely intimate. This is where many of you will begin to feel the stirring of remembrance, as though these words are not introducing something new, but awakening something you have always carried within. The next unveiling is the old soul, and if your spirit has ever whispered that you do not belong to the surface-level rhythms of this world, this may be the moment your inner knowing finally finds language. There is a depth inside you that cannot be explained by your age, your upbringing, or your environment. You have walked through life with eyes that see differently, with a heart that feels beyond the present moment, with an intuition that perceives truths others overlook. This is not personality. It is destiny. I say this with reverence because old souls often grow up feeling misplaced, misunderstood, or prematurely matured. While others ran toward noise, you ran toward meaning. While others settled for answers, you searched for truth. While others feared silence, you found sanctuary in it. That was never accidental. It was spiritual memory rising to the surface, reminding you that you carry wisdom not earned in a single lifetime, but gathered across journeys your conscious mind cannot fully recall. There were moments in your childhood moments when you would sit with questions too big for your age, moments when the night sky felt like a conversation, moments when you sensed God in places others could not feel anything. And perhaps you didn't understand why you carried the ache of knowing, the weight of empathy, or the longing for something beyond what your eyes could see. But now in this Kairos moment, the veil begins to thin. Old souls are sent into the world as reminders, as mirrors, as carriers of ancient frequency. Your presence alone awakens memory in others. Your words are not ordinary. They are infused with the echoes of lifetimes, and people feel that even if they cannot explain it, they come to you for guidance without knowing why. They trust you without needing proof. They sense your depth without requiring explanation. I've met people like this in my own journey, individuals who barely spoke, yet carried a gravity that shifted the atmosphere. I didn't understand it then, but now I see that heaven marks its old souls with a subtle but undeniable radiance, a quiet authority that does not shout, yet resonates more loudly than any performance could. And if you recognize this within yourself, it is because heaven is revealing who you have always been. You have long felt out of sync with the world because you were never meant to be shaped by it. Old souls operate on divine timing, not cultural pacing. You move slowly where others rush because your spirit refuses to be pulled by noise. You seek depth because your assignment requires it. You guard your energy because heaven has entrusted you with sensitivity that must be protected, not diluted. There were seasons when you questioned your difference, when you wished you could simply fit in, when your depth felt like a burden rather than a blessing. But I want to tell you something I learned the hard way. The very traits that made you feel out of place are the same traits heaven will use to position you. Your slowness was wisdom. Your sensitivity was discernment. Your solitude was preparation. Your questions were prophecy. And the moment you stop resisting what makes you different is the moment your destiny begins to accelerate. I remember a time in my own life when I tried to silence my depth, tried to shrink my perception, tried to become normal just to avoid feeling separate. But heaven does not call the old soul into conformity. Heaven calls them into remembrance. And once I embraced that truth, everything shifted. My peace deepened. My path clarified. My intuition sharpened. The same awakening is now happening in you. Your divine purpose as an old soul is to stir remembrance in those who have forgotten who they are, to speak truth gently into places where illusion has taken root, to hold space for healing and awakening in ways the world desperately needs. You were born with eyes that see into eternity and a heart that hears the rhythms of the unseen. And now that you are becoming aware of it, heaven can finally activate what has been dormant within you. Chosen one. If something inside you feels like it is exhaling for the first time, if you feel a warmth rising in your chest or a deep sense of recognition, trust it. It means the old soul within you is awakening from its long silence. Chosen one. As we continue this unfolding, the scroll turns again and reveals another dimension of identity that many carry without fully understanding its weight. If you have ever felt invisible in a room yet strangely aware of everything within it, if your silence has always been more powerful than other people's noise, then this next unveiling may resonate deeply with you. The path of the observer is subtle, sacred, and often misunderstood, yet heaven entrusts this role only to those with the spiritual sensitivity to carry it. There have been countless moments in your life when you stood at the edge of conversations, gatherings, or environments, not because you were shy, but because your spirit was listening. You have always noticed the shift in someone's expression before they spoke. You sensed the hidden tension in the air while others remained unaware. You picked up the unspoken emotions, the quiet discomforts, the invisible fractures beneath someone's smile. This awareness wasn't taught. It was woven into you. Observers see with more than eyes. They see with spirit. In my own life, I've had seasons where I couldn't understand why I felt every room so deeply, why I knew when someone was hurting, even if they hid it well. At times, I wondered if something was wrong with me, but as I grew, I realized heaven had crafted me that way, so that I could read the spiritual atmosphere, discern the hidden motives, and perceive the truth behind the noise. Many observers experience this same confusion until they awaken to the purpose behind their sensitivity. You chosen. One may have believed your quietness meant you were overlooked, but the truth is far more profound. Heaven often positions observers in the background because their real assignment is not to take the spotlight, but to hold the spiritual structure of the room. While others speak, you perceive. While others react, you interpret. While others get swept by emotion, you remain anchored. You carry a calmness that feels like shelter, a presence that steadies others without effort. People might not know why they trust you, but they do. They might not know why they open up to you, but they feel compelled. You have always been the safe place people step into when their world feels unstable. Observers operate differently because they were designed with spiritual antennas that most people do not have. You notice body language, the slight tightening of a jaw, the shift in tone, the fleeting look someone tries to hide. You also feel energetic, changes the warm presence of peace, the quiet warning of discord, the subtle vibration of deception. This isn't imagination. This is discernment, awakening in real time. Heaven placed this within you so that you could guide, protect, and bring clarity without ever needing to raise your voice. There is a quiet authority in you that you may not fully recognize. I've seen observers diffuse arguments without speaking a word, shift atmospheres by simply standing in a room, and bring peace into chaos without ever announcing themselves. This is your gift. Your silence is not passive. It is powerful. It is intentional. It is divine. But here's something many observers don't realize. The world often misunderstands the quiet. Some may assume you're distant, uninterested, or unsure of yourself. Yet inside, there is a deep river of awareness, wisdom, and emotional intelligence that only heaven could have crafted. You do not speak because you are unsure. You speak only when it matters. And when you do, your words carry weight that leaves an imprint long after they're spoken. People remember what you say because what you say comes from depth, not impulse. Chosen one. Your divine purpose is to hold steady the spiritual balance that others cannot see. You are the anchor in the storm. You are the watcher on the wall. You are the quiet guardian who stands between chaos and order. This world needs your clarity and your stillness more than you know. Observers are the ones heaven trusts with insight, with discernment, with the ability to see beneath layers and perceive truth where others see only shadows. If something within you feels like it is exhaling in recognition, or if you feel a subtle warmth rising in your spirit right now, it is likely because this part of your identity is being activated. You're not just quiet. You're chosen for a role that carries silent authority. Embrace it. Honor it. Trust it. Your awareness is not a burden. It is your assignment. Chosen one. As we move forward into the next layer of your divine identity, the scroll turns toward a calling that feels both mysterious and intimate. A role carried by those whom heaven trusts with secrets, whispers, and revelations that bypass the natural mind. If you have ever felt knowledge rise within you that you didn't study, if you have ever sensed a warning before an event happened, or if you've ever spoken words that surprised even you because they felt guided, then listen closely, for this next unveiling may speak directly into your spirit. This is the path of the messenger, the one who hears beyond sound, sees beyond sight, and knows beyond reason. There have been moments in your life when something inside you spoke louder than logic. Perhaps you woke from dreams that felt too real to dismiss dreams that later unfolded in your waking life. Perhaps you felt an inner pull to call someone at the exact moment they needed help. Or maybe you heard a subtle whisper urging you toward or away from something without knowing why. These experiences were never random. They were the early signs of your prophetic wiring, awakening the markers of a soul designed to receive and transmit higher wisdom. The messenger carries a spiritual antenna that picks up frequencies others aren't tuned to. You perceive alignment, timing, and energetic shifts long before they manifest. This sensitivity is not accidental, it is intentional. Heaven placed this inside you so that you could guide, awaken, and speak life into those who have lost their way. In my own journey, I've encountered moments when words poured out of me that didn't feel like mine, moments when clarity came in a sudden flash, moments when I sensed something unfolding long before there was physical evidence. I used to question these experiences until I realized they were not imagination, but invitation, an invitation into partnership with heaven's voice. And you chosen one have likely felt the same tug. The world may have told you that you overthink, that you're too sensitive, or that your intuition is strange, but heaven calls it gift, alignment, and assignment. What feels natural to you is supernatural by design. There is something profoundly beautiful about the way messengers move through the world. You don't just hear words, you hear intention. You don't just see people, you see their spiritual posture. You don't just feel emotions, you feel the energy beneath them. This perceptiveness often makes you feel different, even isolated, because while others navigate life horizontally, you navigate vertically between realms, between frequencies, between what is spoken and what is truly meant. And while that can feel heavy at times, it is also the clearest sign of your anointing. Messengers often carry a sense of inner restlessness, a feeling that something is always shifting, always calling, always unfolding. You may feel drawn to certain number symbols or patterns. You may sense meaning in moments others overlook. You may have felt guided by an unseen hand during the most critical seasons of your life. These experiences are proof that heaven has been walking with you, preparing you, tuning you, for messengers must learn to trust the voice within, even when the world doubts it. Your greatest challenge has never been hearing, it has been believing what you hear. But hear me clearly. Anointed. 1. Your intuition is not a guessing tool. It is a spiritual instrument. It is calibrated to heaven's frequency. And now in this Kairos moment, that instrument is being sharpened and amplified. You are stepping into a season where your dreams will speak louder, your discernment will grow sharper, and your inner knowing will become impossible to ignore. Heaven is increasing your sensitivity because your assignment requires clarity. Through you, others will receive direction, comfort, alignment, and prophetic insight they cannot access on their own. Your purpose is not merely to speak, it is to transmit. You carry codes of awakening in your voice, in your presence, in your energy. When you speak truth, something unlocks in others. When you share insight, someone's path becomes clear. When you release revelation, chains break silently. You were born for this, chosen one. If your spirit is resonating, if you feel a stirring or a quiet confirmation rising in your chest, then trust it. This is your identity remembering itself. Chosen one. As the scroll turns once more, the next unveiling carries a frequency that feels both creative and divine, a calling reserved for those whose imagination is not merely a trait, but a spiritual gateway. If you have ever felt ideas spark within you like sudden flashes of light, if inspiration flows through you in unexpected waves, or if creating feels less like a hobby and more like breathing, then listen closely. Heaven may be revealing that you walk the path of the Creator, the one entrusted with turning unseen realms into visible form. This identity is sacred because creation is not simply the act of making something new. It is the act of partnering with the divine to bring heaven's beauty into the physical world. You create not because you want to, but because something in your spirit refuses to stay silent. There have been countless moments in your life when ideas arrived uninvited, full of color, shape, sound, or vision. You may have felt the sudden urge to write, paint, design, build, or express something that felt too alive to ignore. Some of your greatest ideas came at inconvenient times while walking, resting, or daydreaming, because inspiration does not operate on human schedule. It operates on divine timing. And when heaven stirs a creator, it does so through imagination that feels like remembrance, as though you are recalling something your soul already knew. The world might have told you these tendencies were impractical, unrealistic, or childish, but heaven knows they were spiritual signals, urging you to express what others cannot see. Your journey as a creator has likely included seasons of deep, longing moments when you felt misunderstood because others did not see the world the way you do. While people around you focused on routine and logic, your spirit was drawn to meaning, symbolism, story, and emotion. You may have been labeled a dreamer, but the truth is that dreamers are simply visionaries ahead of their time. I have lived this tension myself, feeling the pull between what society expects and what my spirit insists on expressing. There were moments when I tried to silence my imagination, thinking it made me different in ways that were inconvenient. But every time I did, a part of me felt dimmed. It took years to understand that my creativity was not a distraction. It was a divine assignment awakening. Creators carry a unique responsibility because they bridge the unseen and the seen. Your ideas are not random. They are spiritual frequencies looking for form. Your designs, words, art, music, inventions, and visions each carry a piece of heaven's blueprint. When you create, you shift atmospheres. When you express yourself, you awaken something dormant in others. When you bring beauty into the world, you disrupt darkness without ever engaging it directly. This is why your creativity feels urgent at times. Heaven uses your work to heal places logic cannot reach. Your art becomes a portal, your words become medicine, your visions become pathways. You are not just making things, you are shaping the emotional and spiritual landscape around you. And yet being a creator often comes with struggle. You may experience seasons when inspiration feels distant, when you doubt your abilities, or when fear of judgment keeps your ideas hidden. These moments do not mean you lack purpose. They mean you are being refined. Every creator must learn to trust the flow, surrender the fear, and embrace the calling even when it feels risky. I have faced these same seasons, questioning my voice, questioning my ideas, questioning whether what I carried mattered at all. But each time I surrendered the doubt, the clarity returned. This is the rhythm of creation, ebb and flow, silence and explosion, stillness and expression. And through it all, heaven shapes you into someone capable of carrying revelation in artistic form. Chosen one. If you feel a subtle stirring in your chest, or a quiet recognition rising inside you as you hear these words, it may be because the Creator within you is awakening. You were designed with a divine lens, a way of seeing the world, not as it is, but as it could be. Honor that. Lean into it. Trust it. Your creativity is not a hobby. It is a calling. Chosen one. As the scroll continues to unfurl, the next revelation carries a weight unlike the others. This is not a calling born from ease or natural gifting. It is a calling forged in fire, shaped in darkness, and awakened through survival. If you have ever wondered why your journey has felt heavier than most, why pain visited you more often than joy, or why life seemed to test you long before you even understood the rules, then lean in closely. The next identity is the survivor, and the moment you recognize this mantle, the entire story of your life begins to make sense in a way it never has before. There have been seasons when you felt completely alone, seasons when everything you depended on collapsed at once, seasons when you questioned whether you would make it through the night, much less the year. And yet somehow, despite the weight, despite the exhaustion, despite the emotional storms that tore at your spirit, you rose. You rose even when you didn't feel strong. You rose even when you had no support. You rose even when your heart felt shattered. That rising was not self-generated strength. It was a divine force refusing to let your story end prematurely. Survivors are protected in ways they rarely recognize until they look back and see the invisible hands that carried them. I remember a time in my own life when the darkness felt overwhelming, when every door seemed closed and every prayer felt unanswered. I didn't realize then that heaven was building spiritual muscle in me that comfort never could. I didn't understand that the breaking was not meant to destroy me, but to carve out the depth needed for my destiny. If you look closely at your own path, you will likely see echoes of this truth. The trauma you endured was never your identity. It was your training. The heartbreak you survived was never meant to define you. It was meant to strengthen you. The losses that left you breathless were not signs of abandonment. They were moments of divine pruning, preparing space for what was destined to bloom later. Survivors carry a spiritual gravity that cannot be taught. People sense your depth before you speak. They feel your sincerity before you explain yourself. They trust you instinctively, not because you pretend to be strong, but because your presence holds the weight of lived experience. When someone is drowning in their own despair, they feel safer around someone who has navigated the same waters and lived to tell the story. You chosen one. Hold the light that others in darkness need not, because you've avoided pain, but because you've walked through it and discovered the strength hiding beneath your scars. There is something sacred about the way survivors love. You understand fragility. You understand fear. You understand the ache behind someone's silence. You recognize the tremble in someone's voice because you once spoke with the same tremble. This empathy didn't come from books or teachings. It came from surviving what others would have surrendered to. This is why people confide in you even when they barely know you. They sense they won't be judged. They sense you understand without needing explanation. They sense that your heart has room for their pain because it once carried your own. Yet, being a survivor often comes with a hidden burden, the tendency to minimize your own strength. You may have spent years believing you were weak because of how deeply you felt your emotions, but your tears were never a sign of weakness. They were evidence that your heart remained open in a world that tried to close it. You survived with your compassion intact, and that alone is a miracle. Some people survive by hardening. You survived by becoming softer, wiser, more aware, and more compassionate. That is divine resilience. Chosen. 1. If these words feel like they are speaking directly to the chambers of your heart, it is because the survivor within you is being acknowledged, perhaps for the first time. The world may not have seen the strength it took for you to keep going, but heaven did. And now that you're standing on the other side of what once tried to break you, your story becomes a lantern for those still lost in the valley. Your mission is not simply to overcome, it is to guide others into their own rising. Chosen. 1. As we reach the final turning of this scroll, the revelation before you carries a sacred resonance reserved for some of the rarest souls on earth. This unveiling speaks to those who have always felt like they lived between dimensions, people who never fully belonged to one place, one crowd, one ideology, or one spiritual landscape. If you have ever felt like you live in the in-between, like you can see both sides of a situation when others choose extremes, or like you were born to weave understanding where there is division, then listen closely. The final identity is the bridge, and if this mantle rests upon you, the weight of your life will suddenly make sense in a way nothing else ever has. There have been moments when you felt torn between worlds, between the spiritual and the practical, the mystical and the logical, the ancient and the modern. You have lived your life standing in thresholds, feeling connected to everything, yet belonging nowhere completely. This experience is not confusion. It is calling. Bridges are positioned between realms because their purpose requires spiritual dual citizenship. You see from multiple angles at once. You understand perspectives others dismiss. You find meaning in contradictions that others cannot tolerate. And even when you feel stretched, heaven is using that stretch to widen the capacity of your spirit, making room for the role you were designed to carry. In my own journey, I've walked through seasons where I felt pulled in opposite directions, where I sensed truths from different paths that others insisted could not coexist. For years, I wondered whether something was wrong with me, whether my openness meant I lacked clarity. But over time, I began to see the divine pattern. The ability to stand between worlds was not a flaw, but a function. I was made to translate, to unify, to reveal the connection between what others saw as separate. And the more I embraced that truth, the more peace, purpose, and direction flowed into my life. Many who walk the path of the bridge experience this same awakening when they finally recognize what they carry. Chosen one. You have likely been the one people turn to when they need clarity, because you can explain complex things in simple ways. You can sense the spirit in logic and the logic in spirit. You can hold compassion without abandoning truth. You can correct without condemning. You can translate pain into understanding and conflict into communication. There is a softness in you that welcomes people, and a steadiness in you that guides them. This combination is rare. It is not accidental. It is assignment. Heaven placed this balance in you because your mission requires navigating spaces where others get lost in extremes. Bridges often grow up feeling like the outsider in their family, the one who sees the unspoken dysfunction, the one who understands both sides of an argument, the one who mediates without meaning to. You may have felt like the emotional interpreter, the peacemaker, the quiet fixer. And perhaps you didn't realize it then, but every one of those experiences was training your spirit for the future. You are being shaped into someone who could bring harmony where there is tension, order, where there is confusion and healing, where there is misunderstanding. There is a divine intelligence within you that connects dots others never notice. You take pieces from different worlds, ideas, beliefs, experiences, cultures, and weave them into something whole. This is why people often tell you that talking to you brings clarity. They feel understood without needing to explain everything. They feel seen even in their contradictions. You carry a non-judgmental presence that invites honesty, and that honesty is what allows transformation to begin. But bridges also face a secret struggle. Sometimes you feel stretched thin, pulled in too many directions, or misunderstood by people who only see life in black and white. Your ability to hold complexity can feel like a burden when others demand simplicity. Your capacity to understand both sides can feel exhausting when others push you to choose one, but hear this clearly, chosen one. Your ability to stand in the middle is holy. It is sacred. It is a spiritual technology, heaven built into you for a purpose far greater than the discomfort it creates. You were not meant to choose a side. You were meant to reveal the connection between them. You are the living thread that ties together what the world insists must remain separate. Your divine purpose is to build bridges between hearts, between ideas, between realms, and even between timelines of destiny. And now that you are awakening to this truth, heaven can finally activate the fullness of what you carry. Chosen one, Bantin one. If your spirit feels a quiet recognition rising within you, like someone has finally named the part of you that has always existed but was never fully understood, then trust it. The bridge within you is awakening, and now your destiny begins. Chosen one. Now that the 8 identities have been fully unveiled, we step into a deeper layer of revelation, one that weaves all these callings together and begins to reveal the greater architecture of your existence. Up until now, you may have listened to each identity and recognized fragments of yourself scattered throughout them. A piece here, a spark there, a memory awakened, a knowing resurfaced. And perhaps you felt torn, wondering which one you truly are. But hear this clearly, Anointed One, heaven never designed you to fit into just one category. You are not a label. You are a tapestry woven with threads that come from many realms of purpose, each one placed with divine precision. What you carry cannot be simplified because your soul was created with multiple frequencies for multiple assignments across the timeline of your destiny. There have been seasons in your life when one identity felt dominant. Perhaps there were years when you lived as the fighter standing strong in battles you never asked for, or seasons when the healer emerged carrying the weight of others' hearts, or moments when the messenger was loud within you, offering dreams, visions, and intuitive insight you could not deny. This shifting may have confused you, but it was never chaos, it was cadence. Heaven moves you in phases, activating different aspects of your soul according to the timing required. Just as Ecclesiastes speaks of a time for everything under heaven, your spirit also moves through appointed cycles, each awakening the part of you necessary for that period of your life. In my own journey, I went through phases where I believed I had to choose which part of myself was real. Some years I felt like the survivor shaped by pain and refined in solitude. Other years I felt like the observer quietly reading the room before anyone spoke. And then suddenly gifts I had forgotten would reawaken, pulling me into a completely different expression of purpose. I used to think these shifts meant I lacked clarity or stability, but now, looking back, I understand the truth. Identity is not a single destination. It is a sequence, a divine unfolding, a scroll unrolling one line at a time. You are not meant to choose between these parts. You are meant to learn how to carry them in harmony. Chosen one, you have been criticized at times for being too much or too complex. Some people told you that you needed to pick a single path, a single expression, a single voice. But those limitations were never written into your scroll. You were designed to be layered because your assignment requires adaptability, depth, and multi-dimensional awareness. A single note soul cannot harmonize the spaces you are meant to enter. You carry the healer's compassion, the fighter's resilience, the observer's insight, the messenger's intuition, the creator's vision, the survivor's endurance, and the bridge's unity, not as contradictions, but as a spiritual toolkit heaven prepared for your calling. You have always sensed that your life would move through phases, each one unlocking something different. This is why certain seasons felt like training grounds, while others felt like dark nights of the soul. It is why new capabilities would awaken seemingly out of nowhere, just when they were needed most. And it is why you sometimes felt ahead of your time, because spiritually you were. Heaven was preparing you not for a single moment, but for a lifetime of varied assignments. And here is the deeper truth. Many never realize your identity is not static because your calling is not static. You are not meant to serve one type of person, one kind of environment, or one single mission. You were created for layered impact, unfolding over years, shifting as the world shifts, adapting as heaven directs. You carry multiple mantles because your destiny spans multiple dimensions. You are not one identity, you are a constellation. Chosen one. If this resonates with your spirit, it is because something deep inside you has been waiting to hear this truth. You are not fragmented. You are not inconsistent. You are not lost. You are evolving according to divine timing. Every version of you has served a purpose. Every shift has been guided. Every awakening has been intentional. What you are stepping into now is integration, the moment when all the parts of you begin to align, synchronize, and move as one. And when that happens, your destiny will accelerate in ways you never imagined. Chosen one. As we step into this next layer of divine unveiling, the scroll now shifts from identity to activation. Up until now, you've been shown who you are across lifetimes of spiritual formation: healer, fighter, observer, messenger, creator, survivor, bridge, and the many combinations of these that breathe within you. But identity without activation is like a lamp hidden under a basket. Heaven does not reveal who you are simply to give you information. Heaven reveals who you are to awaken movement. This is the moment where destiny begins to stir from potential into reality, the moment when something ancient inside you starts whispering, "It is time." There have been many times in your life when you felt like you were waiting for permission to start, permission to speak, permission to step into who you knew you were becoming. But what you may not have realized is that your hesitation came from spiritual timing, not personal doubt. Heaven hides certain abilities until the appointed moment, because releasing them too early could drain you, expose you, or push you into assignments you were not yet ready to carry. Just as fruit ripens at the right season, destiny ripens in divine sequence. And now, chosen one, the ripening has begun. You may feel it as restlessness or a pull in your spirit, or a sense that the life you've been living is too small to contain who you truly are. These sensations are not discomfort, they are prophecy. In my own walk, I remember seasons when everything external seemed still, yet something internal felt like it was vibrating with expectancy. I didn't have words for it then, but now I know those were the early signs of activation. Heaven was aligning things I could not see, preparing connections I had not met yet, and strengthening parts of me that felt like weaknesses. I didn't understand the silence then, but looking back, I see it was the sacred pause before the unfolding. You, chosen one, may be standing in that same sacred pause right now. Activation is not loud. It does not begin with fireworks or attention. It begins subtly through internal shifts, renewed clarity, divine nudges, heightened sensitivity, unexpected courage, new desires, or the sudden release of old fears. You may notice that the things that once drained you no longer have access to you. You may find yourself letting go of relationships that no longer align, routines that no longer feed your soul, or environments that feel spiritually heavy. These are not losses. They are signs that heaven is clearing space for the new chapter preparing to unfold. Activation always begins with internal rearrangement. There is also a divine seriousness rising within you, even if your outer life looks unchanged. You might feel a call toward deeper alignment, toward solitude, prayer, reflection, or learning. You might feel drawn toward people who mirror your higher self, or pulled away from those who dim your light. You may even notice your dreams becoming more vivid, your intuition sharpening, or your emotions intensifying. All of this is part of the preparation. Heaven awakens what it intends to use. Chosen one, understand that activation is not about doing more. It is about becoming more. When heaven activates a soul, the first shift happens in identity, not activity. The outer steps will come naturally once the inner alignment is complete. Your spirit knows the way long before your mind understands it. And this is why you felt the inner pull, even when you could not explain it. Your calling has been knocking at the door of your awareness. What is beginning now is the merging of all your identities. The part of you that heals will strengthen the part that fights. The part that observes will expand the part that creates. The part that receives messages will empower the part that bridges. You are not stepping into a single path. You are stepping into a unified expression of everything heaven placed within you. This unification is activation. This integration is destiny. This inner awakening is the signal that your life is about to shift direction. Chosen one. If your heart feels heavy, warm, or strangely awakened as you hear this, trust it. Something deep within you is rising. Something long asleep is stretching. Something written for you before time began is beginning to move toward manifestation. Chosen one. As we enter this next movement of your unfolding, the energy shifts from internal awakening to external manifestation. What has been stirring quietly within you is now preparing to touch the visible parts of your life. Activation is not meant to stay hidden in the inner chambers of your spirit. Once heaven completes the inner alignment, circumstances, relationships, opportunities, and even obstacles begin to rearrange themselves around your calling. This is where many chosen ones feel the greatest confusion, because what begins to happen externally often looks chaotic before it becomes clear. But hear me, the chaos is not the enemy. The chaos is the rearranging. There comes a moment in every awakened soul's journey when the outer world must adjust to the new frequency rising within them. This may show up as sudden endings, abrupt shifts in your interests, or the fading of connections that once felt central to your life. At first, these changes can feel destabilizing. You may find yourself grieving doors you once prayed would open. You may question why certain people no longer feel aligned, or why certain paths no longer feel alive. Yet what feels like loss is actually liberation. Heaven cannot bring the next chapter if your hands are still gripping the remnants of the old one. In my own life, I remember seasons where everything familiar began to dissolve at once. Opportunities I thought were secure evaporated. Relationships I believed were permanent quietly slipped out of alignment. Even my desires began to change without warning. It felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I didn't understand why. But looking back, I see that heaven was removing what could not exist in the next version of my life. The dismantling was preparation, the disruption was protection, and the emptiness was an invitation for something greater to enter. What I feared was collapse was actually construction. Chosen. 1. You may be experiencing something similar. You may feel like you are standing between the no longer and the not yet. This space is sacred. It is the hallway between destinies, the transition between timelines, the quiet pause where heaven rewrites the landscape of your life. When activation reaches the physical realm, life begins to feel unfamiliar because you are no longer operating from old patterns, old wounds, or old identities. You are stepping into a higher frequency, and your outer world must rise to meet it. During this phase, people around you may not understand what is happening. They may tell you that you're changing too fast, or becoming distant, or thinking differently. That is because you are thinking differently. Your spirit is expanding into rooms your mind has not yet fully comprehended. You are perceiving truths you once overlooked. You are hearing a deeper voice and sensing a new direction that cannot be explained in simple human language. When this happens, misunderstandings are common. Some people will sense the shift in you but won't know how to respond. Others will sense the rising of your power and become threatened by it. Still others will feel drawn to you without knowing why. Every reaction you encounter is a reflection of the spiritual realignment taking place. You may also notice that your environment becomes uncomfortable, as if heaven is refusing to let you settle in spaces that are too small for the future written for you. Workplaces feel confining, friend groups feel disconnected, old habits feel hollow. Even your own routine may start to feel foreign, as if your spirit is nudging you towards something more. This discomfort is divine. It is a signal that you are outgrowing the version of yourself that once survived but can no longer lead you where you are destined to go. Chosen. 1. You are not losing your life. You are shedding the life that can no longer contain your calling. Everything that feels like it is falling apart is actually falling into place. The shift you sense is spiritual before it becomes visible. Activation in the outer realm often begins with tension, pressure, or unfamiliarity because heaven is rearranging the pieces around your destiny. If your spirit feels both excitement and uncertainty, trust it. This is what it feels like when the invisible becomes undeniable. This is the transition into becoming who you were always meant to be. Chosen 1. As we arrive at the final movement of this prophetic journey, the scroll opens, fully revealing the culmination of everything heaven has been shaping within you. This is where identity activation, timing, and destiny converge. This is where the invisible architecture of your life begins to make sense in ways your mind could never have anticipated. And as you read these words, something in your spirit may already feel the weight of this moment, because this is not merely the end of a teaching, it is the beginning of your becoming. There comes a time in every chosen soul's journey when understanding shifts from being something you reach for to something that rises within you. You are now entering that threshold. Everything you have lived, everything you have endured, everything you have awakened to in these past chapters is leading you toward integration, a state where the parts of you no longer compete but cooperate. You are no longer the version of yourself that fragmented your identity to survive. You are becoming the version heaven always saw, unified, aligned, awakened, and ready. This final stage is where heaven begins to reveal the broader mission behind your existence. You were not shaped as a healer, fighter, observer, messenger, creator, survivor, or bridge for isolated reasons. These identities were never meant to be compartments. They are facets of one calling. They come together not randomly, but rhythmically, forming a spiritual blueprint designed with intention. Heaven has always known how your strengths would merge, how your pain would refine you, how your gifts would speak through you, and how your presence would alter the atmosphere around you. And now you're reaching the point where you finally begin to see it too. In my own life, I remember the moment when what once felt like scattered experiences suddenly aligned into a cohesive purpose. The skills I thought were unrelated merged into clarity. The wounds that once felt senseless became sources of wisdom. The silence that felt empty revealed itself as preparation. And the identities I once felt torn between became the very foundation of my assignment. This realization did not come in a single moment of revelation, but through a deep inner knowing, one that I sense may now be stirring within you as well. Chosen one. This is your season of sacred coherence. Heaven is weaving together the threads that once felt disconnected. You may feel a new sense of stability rising within you, even if your external world is still shifting. You may feel a groundedness in your identity that you have never experienced before. You may feel less attached to labels and more connected to purpose. This is the sign that integration has begun. You are stepping into your wholeness. Integration is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is about standing in your full spiritual stature without shrinking, apologizing, or doubting. It is about understanding that you are not meant to fit into the world, you are meant to shift it. Everything you carry, every layer of your identity, every gift within you, every scar upon your heart, every whisper of intuition, every spark of creativity, and every moment of survival has positioned you for influence that reaches beyond your personal story. This final revelation is simple yet profound. You were sent here to impact lives, shift atmospheres, break generational patterns, awaken sleeping destinies, and carry a presence that reveals heaven wherever you go. You are a walking portal of divine purpose. You are a carrier of light encoded with ancient wisdom. You are a living scroll unfolding in real time. You are not ordinary. You are not random. You were chosen long before you ever knew what chosen meant. As this understanding settles into your spirit, you may feel a mixture of emotion, relief, recognition, reverence, or even a quiet trembling. That feeling is alignment. It is the sensation of stepping into the timeline heaven originally wrote for you. You are not stepping into a new chapter. You are stepping into your true one. Chosen one, may this final unveiling awaken you fully. May it anchor you. May it clarify you. May it propel you into the life heaven has been preparing you for. And may you walk forward not with fear, but with the certainty that you are seen, guided, and infinitely supported. Your scroll is open now. Your destiny is active. Your time has come. Chosen one. As we come to the close of this journey, I want you to breathe deeply, because what you are feeling right now is not emotion alone. It is recognition. It is awakening. It is the sound of your sealed prophecy unfolding in real time. You did not hear these words by accident. Heaven has aligned this moment with your spirit, and you are standing inside your exact Kairos hour, the very point on heaven's clock, marked with your name before time began. Anointed One. The identities you discovered today were not merely descriptions. They were mirrors, revealing the many layers heaven has placed within you. Something ancient inside you has been stirred. Something long asleep has risen. Something written into your hidden scroll is now beginning to glow. This is the moment your destiny breathes, the moment your purpose turns its face toward you, the moment your spirit whispers, "I remember." As you leave this video, do not rush back into ordinary thinking. Sit with what has awakened. Honor what has unfolded. Your future is no longer ahead of you, it is opening beneath your feet. Step with reverence, step with courage, step with gratitude. The same God who authored your scroll is now illuminating your next path, one step at a time. Chosen. One, may clarity follow you. May peace surround you. May courage rise within you. And may every hidden gift planted in your spirit begin to bloom in its appointed season. You are stepping into alignment. You are stepping into remembrance. You are stepping into the version of yourself that heaven crafted with intention and love. If this message touched your spirit, you may feel led to declare your alignment. Type 111 as a sign that you recognize this moment as yours. If you feel called, subscribe or share, so this message reaches other chosen ones, awakening to their divine timing. Let your agreement become a prayer. Let your engagement become a seed. Let your presence become a yes to heaven's unfolding. Anointed one, walk forward with expectancy. Your scroll is open. Your timing is now. Your destiny is awakening. May the light within you rise and reveal everything heaven placed inside you. Go in grace, go in strength, go in divine purpose. You are chosen.